Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 219, recorded live on Monday, October 20th, 2014. I am your host and the Mudville MVP, Todd Klindt. Before we get started into the meat, the fun stuff, the thing that makes you tune in week after week, first I got to give a shout out to my homies at Rackspace. You can find out about all the cool stuff we do at www.rackspace.com. If SharePoint is your thing, good on you. You can find out more about our SharePoint offerings at sharepoint.rackspace.com. And if you like to throw a little taste of Hyper-V or System Center in with your IT infrastructure, you can find some offerings that we have around that at www.rackspace.com/Microsoft. Kind of a new thing we're putting out there, but if you want to have your stuff in the cloud and have it from start to finish, soup to nuts, alpha to omega, all on that gooey rich Microsoft stack, we can do that for you tonight, and that's at rackspace.com/Microsoft. On to our production notes. The production notes, I was talking to my executive producer, Lori, before the show tonight, and things have been going pretty well. Haven't had any machine lockups in a while. Haven't had any recording problems because I'm doing it with the Google Hangouts now. My microphone hasn't fought me lately. Everything seems to be going pretty well. So this is the third week in a row that I've done this on Google Hangouts. I kind of feel like I have the hang of it now, no pun intended. It's going pretty well. So again, kind of to talk about the process that I use, I'm doing a Hangout on air inside of Plus. You go into the Hangouts, and that broadcasts it on YouTube. So you can watch it on YouTube or Google Plus or whatever. And then when I get done, it's recorded up there, and there's a link I can just download it. So I download that MP4 file. I get it back on my desktop. I slice it. I dice it. I have my lower thirds and all that kind of stuff. And then I upload it back up into YouTube. And it's been going pretty well. I've been having them. They've been getting out late, but that's not been any problem with YouTube or the process. That's just me being lazy. Taking naps during the day. I got a big desk. There's a lot of room underneath of it to sleep, and I take advantage of that. And that's been it. But I think the video's been good. I think the audio's been good. And it's all been good. The only complaint that I've had from anybody, and it's a legitimate complaint, is that for the live folks, there's about 20 of them in the chat room right now, the lag is worse than it was on Ustream. The lag can be a minute or so, and that makes it a lot tougher for the heckling to happen because I see the stuff that they write, and then I respond to it, and then a minute later they see and hear my witty retorts, and but other than that, it's been going pretty well. So I would love to hear if you have any comments about all this. You can hit me up at Todd Klindt on Twitter, or you can email me todd.klint@rackspace.com and let me know, good, bad, otherwise. But I think for now, we're going to stick with it till something better comes along. It's all been pretty good. For our first topic here, this is something that I don't do often on the old Netcast, but this came in this week and something I had to deal with. It got me some viewer mail. There you go. Mostly the feedback that I get is positive, but every once in a while I do anger a listener, and last week or a couple of weeks ago I did do that, and so one of the listeners did send me a well-articulated email calling me out on this. So I will read this on air. Dear Mr. Klindt, if that is your real name. Okay, they didn't put that. He did say, on one of your webcasts, you made some negative comments about mules. I had my research team look into that, and it looks like that was Netcast 213 that I did that on. He continues, anyone who knows anything about mules knows that they are superior to horses in every way. They are easier keepers. They are smoother to ride. They have stronger personalities. In fact, when the Texas Rangers first started out, they rode mules, not horses. It's also not well known that mules invented fire, the wheel, and peanut butter sandwiches. Okay, he didn't write that part either. But he did write, so I think you owe mules an apology. Regards, Bruce. So this was from a friend of mine, Bruce Alcock. He's a guy that I met years ago on at a conference, and we've been emailing back and forth. So not only did Bruce educate me on mules, the fairest of the equine, but he did this in such a great way. So he writes me this email. Oh, and also sent me a picture. This is Bruce and his mule, or Bruce and one of his mules, I guess. Anyway, so Bruce sends me this email calling me out on my mistreatment of mules, and then at the bottom asks me a question about SharePoint. And so I thought that was pretty clever, because now I'm feeling all rotten. Oh, great, I insulted a man and his mules. I'm the worst person ever. Oh, so I can make it up to him by answering a question about SharePoint. So that was really well done. So thanks to Bruce for that. Bruce and I can go way back. He meant this completely in jest. We had a bunch of emails back and forth. But yes, so apparently mules are the fairer equine. I apologize to all my mule listeners out there. I meant no offense. I don't remember what my mule-related comment was, but mules everywhere were up in arms or hooves or whatever, and I sincerely apologize. I'm sorry if you were offended. That's in case I ever need to be a politician. But thanks for that email, Bruce. I literally laughed out loud. Anyway, I really laughed out loud when I read the email. It was funny. So thanks to Bruce for that. And the next more serious topic that I wanted to talk about was last week Microsoft finally did it. They released the name of the next big conference, the big Microsoft conference. If you guys remember, a month or so ago, I was in Chicago with 19 or so of my friends and listened to what Microsoft's plans were for the next big Microsoft conference. And when we were out there, they said they had a name picked. They weren't releasing it yet. They were kind of finishing some stuff up, and they weren't going to tell us what it was. They stayed true to their word. They didn't tell us what it was, but they released it last week. The next big conference's name will be, hell, you already all know. It's called the Ignite Conference, and that is interesting because Microsoft has used that name before. They had some SharePoint 2010 training that was called the Ignite training, and SharePoint 2013 and all that, and but that's going to be the conference. So it's going to be the Ignite conference. You can go to ignite.microsoft.com and find out all about the conference, as well as register. You can register for the conference now. Get out there. I don't know if I think it's going to sell out, because I think they're just expecting everybody to show up. I think all people. I think millions and millions. But you should get out there. There's a lot of hotel rooms with varying distances from the conference center, and the sooner you sign up for that, the better conference hotel you're going to get. So get out there. And I don't remember, let me click the link, I don't remember the price off the top of my head, and but it's okay. So if you sign up before December 11th, it is $1,920, and if you sign up after December 11th, then it is $2,222. Okay, really, it's only 220, whatever, 22. Anyway, a little bit more. And then they've got various discounts for students and day passes and all that kind of stuff. But again, you can get that at ignite.microsoft.com. And just to recap, for if you haven't been reading my blog and all that, that is May 4th through the 8th at 2015, and that will be in Chicago at the McCormick Place Conference Center. And like I said, I went down there, spent a day or so down there, and it was a great place. I'm excited about what they're going to do. The place was huge. There's a lot of opportunity there, and there's a lot of options there, and I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, ignite.microsoft.com, and hopefully I will see you there. Hopefully I'll submit some papers, and they'll ask me to speak there, and it'll be awesome, and it'll be like a family reunion and stuff. But I'm very excited about that. I was on the edge of my seat. I was actually like a day or two away from emailing them and saying, you remember how 3.5 weeks ago you told us in 2 weeks you were going to tell us the name of this thing? I feel like I've been patient. What's the name going to be? Tell me now. But they came out with it, so it was all good. So hopefully I will see you there. In more SharePoint-related news, last Tuesday was the second Tuesday of the month, and what does that mean, boys and girls? Patch Tuesday. I feel like I need like Patch Tuesday theme music, maybe something on a xylophone or glockenspiel or something. So the October cumulative update for SharePoint 2013 came out. I have not yet seen one for SharePoint 2010, which is a little bit odd. But that came out October 14th. That build number is 15.0.4659.1001. And that came out, like I said, on Tuesday. Now, again, they are committed, dedicated to putting that thing out on Patch Tuesday every single month, which is a great thing. We all remember in the past, how the June CU would come out in July and all that hysterical stuff like that. They've hit their mark like 4 months in a row now, hitting it on Patch Tuesday. I commend them for it. But one of the things that we give up for that is we give up some stability. So much like the August CU, the October CU does not have a Uber patch, and the Uber patch is when we get, like the one big executable for server that's got server and foundation in it, one big executable for project, and we don't get that this month. And the reason for that is they just ran out of time. They had to get it out on Tuesday. There were deadlines, and so they just didn't get it out. So this month there's a foundation patch. There are 3 server patches, 3, count them 3. Another server patch if you're using the indexing connector for Documentum, which I don't think anybody is, but there's kind of 4. And then there's a project server patch. Now, since this is not an Uber patch, if you have SharePoint Server, you have to install the foundation patch. If you have project, you have to install the foundation patch, and all of the server patches, there's a lot of work to it. So much like all the SharePoint patches that come before it, you should not install this cumulative update unless it absolutely fixes something that you need to have fixed. And if you do, then you need to test in a test environment for at least a month and make sure that, check my wiki page, and this one is at toddklindt.com/SP2013 OCT 2014 CU, but that just rolls right off the tongue. And just keep checking back. You can also go to Twitter, subscribe to at SP2013 patches. I believe that's the one. And then as I add regressions and stuff like that, I will tweet those out. You can also do something like, and I've talked about this in the past, you can subscribe to these pages and you'll get them that way too. So so there's that. And again, since this didn't have an Uber patch, I'm even less likely to install it unless I really, really need it. And I've read through the things that it fixes. Nothing really jumped out at me. So be careful with that. But it is out there, and hopefully next month we'll have the full thing, the Uber patch for all of our SharePoint farms. And again, haven't seen the SharePoint 2010 patch yet. But that will be coming out. And of course, you can also keep track of all of this if you go to toddklindt.com/SP2013 builds. Every build's out there. That's also another good one to subscribe to using one of those web services. I know you should be able to do it from my blog. You can't. I suck. Maybe I'll put a link in there for that. But that way, every time I update it, you'll get an email of some sort. But I put that patch on one farm. It didn't explode. Angels didn't sing either, so it's not been good or bad, kind of neutral, kind of blah. So the next one that I wanted to talk about is, this was a good one. So this was a discussion that I had on Twitter with some folks last week about whether a web application needs a root site collection. So does it need a site collection at /? And I can't remember the person I was talking to why they were asking what what their situation was, but they were curious if they needed to have that. And like I said, I don't remember what their situation was, but the answer is always yes. So it sounds like a fun game show we could play sometime called The Answer is Always Yes. Does every web application, and I mean every web application, need a root site collection? The answer is always yes. So here are a few things that will break if you don't have that. InfoPath is notorious for breaking if you don't have a site collection at the root of a web app. Your SharePoint apps need to have a site collection at the root of the web app that receives those app requests. Upgrade is one of those places where it's easy to forget about that when you're attaching your content databases. Always attach the database with the root site collection first. And if you're not going to be upgrading your root, which I've talked to some folks that have been that way, then create a site collection at the root of your web app and then attach your databases. So the reason for this is because there are a few places inside of SharePoint, and you could call it lazy programming, you can call it whatever. There are a few places in SharePoint that need to access common files, JavaScript files, images, whatever, and they just, since those files are always, slash layouts and all that, they just go to the root because that's the only site collection that they know for sure exists. And they will cheat and they will go there for that. And if that site collection doesn't exist, then obviously that fails. So, for instance, there is so I told this to the person, and they're like, "Well, that's great. I'm going to tell my boss something might break." There actually is a KB article, KB 2590564, that talks about how the send to other location will fail if there is no root site collection. So there's just a bunch of things that expect that thing to be there. They use files, and if they're not there, it just poops out and fails. So always have one. In most cases, that site collection doesn't need to have a template. So just so long as you do, new SP site and whatever, it doesn't have to have a template. I always just put like a team site there because I'm old school. I've been, I was a WSS guy way back in the day, so I just think of everything as team sites. But it needs to have the site collection there because it needs that _layouts directory. It needs all that stuff. In the chat room, Lewis is asking, can the root site have deny everyone access minus your farm account? Maybe, but I don't know how that would work with the other stuff. So a better suggestion for me, and I don't know what your whole use case is, a better suggestion would be to just have nothing of value there. So it didn't matter if people got there. Just put that out there. So Merrill is in the chat room, and he's saying he ran into an issue with the app catalog having no root, kept getting access denied. There's all kinds of stuff. So everything does just break. Your SharePoint farm will just have smoke rolling out of it if you don't have a site collection at the root of every web app. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. And right now in the chat room they're talking about grits, which is just making me hungry. All right, so this is another one that I saw, and I don't remember where I saw this, but it is a blog post about a utility that you can use to measure IOPs and latency for disks and file shares and things like that. Back in the old days, when I rode to work with Fred Flintstone, he would make me pedal most days. That Fred is notoriously lazy. We used a tool called SQL IO to measure IO. Now, SQL IO, obviously, was made for SQL, but it has no dependencies on SQL. It's a standalone executable. You can run it anywhere, and it will write files back and forth to your file system, measure latency and throughput and all that kind of stuff. That was a great tool for measuring I/O. That thing literally came out 10 years ago, if not more, but that's been kind of the gold standard. Well, here in this last week, somebody released, or I guess Microsoft released, this new utility called Disk Speed, DISKSPD, and there's a TechNet blog by a guy named Jose Barreto, and he is a member of the file server team at Microsoft. So they wrote this brand new tool called Disk Speed that is, like the next generation of SQL IO. There are versions for 32-bit Windows, 64-bit Windows, ARM, every version that you can think of. And it's the same kind of thing. It is a command line tool that has about 14 gazillion switches and parameters that let you test all different combinations of I/O scenarios to see what works for your Windows server, for your SharePoint server, for your SQL server, whatever. Doesn't matter. But they went, so that's pretty great that it does all that kind of stuff. And it's got some new things. But what it does, what this blog post has even better, is a bunch of PowerShell scripts. And the purpose of these PowerShell scripts are to let you step through certain settings and see which one of those settings works best. So for instance, one of the scripts that they have varies the number of threads the disk speed can use. And disk speed can have 1 to 16 threads. And so basically they have a for each 1 to 16, run disk speed with that number of threads, and then report back the speed. And then it also goes through and shows you which one is the highest, which one is the lowest. So you can run a bunch of these different scripts with these different parameters, cluster sizes and stuff like that, and find out exactly what works best for your particular drives. It's pretty cool that they added all that. That's really nice. So not only do you get the utility, but you also get the scripts that help you write everything. So I was pretty excited about that when I saw that. I haven't had a chance to use it yet and really lay it down on some drives and see what happens, but it's nice. So this is a good thing when you're standing up new hardware, as you start virtualizing SharePoint boxes, virtualizing SQL boxes, all that kind of stuff. Microsoft has laid out great guidelines on how many IOPs and all that you need. And so now you can run a great tool like this one and just make sure that you have those IOPs, because those virtualization guys, they're not evil guys. They seem like evil guys, but they're not evil guys. They're just trying to do their jobs, and their bosses yell at them when they buy too many servers, and their bosses yell at them if their CPUs aren't constantly over 80% and all that kind of stuff. And so when they cram you into another box with 47 other VMs and oversubscribe RAM and do all that kind of crazy stuff with your drives that dynamically build, they're not doing it just to mess with you. All right, sometimes they're doing it just to mess with you, but most of the times they're not doing it just to mess with you. They're doing it because of pressure that they get. So to help you and to help them, if you can go into a VM that they have given you, run something like disk speed, have objective numbers, provable, reliable numbers, repeatable numbers, and then compare that to what the hardware requirements are for whatever you're doing, it makes it easier for you to make the argument for them. It makes it easier for them to make the argument to their management about we need to put them on their own hypervisor, we need to give them faster drives, we need to do whatever. Because that's important stuff. As we do more and more virtualization, people are going to start getting wedged into smaller and smaller slices of VMs, and these are tools that will help you defend yourself and your VMs against that kind of stuff. Another somewhat related article that I read last week, also from the folks at Microsoft. They are on a tear lately. I'm telling you. The title of this white paper, blog post, whatever, is Performance and Capacity Test Results and Recommendations for SharePoint Server 2013. And what they did is they have a bunch of different subjects, so like video, social, web content management, collaboration, whatever, and they walk through scenarios that they tested on Hyper-V hosts and let you know how different architectures performed, how different number of CPUs and all that kind of stuff. They did all the hard work for you, and there's lots of pictures and they got color. It's great. I just thumbed through it. I felt very alive. It was good stuff. But you can kind of couple that with that disk speed thing to make sure as you're designing your new farm exactly what kind of resources you need. Are you guessing? Do you need 2 WFEs? Do you need 3 WFEs? This will help you decide. They actually have graphs where they say, here is a page, page load times, and here's what it looked like when 1,000 people hit it, 10,000 people hit it, with 1 WFE, 2 WFEs, 3 WFEs. It's good stuff. So it's definitely good. You're not going to have to read all of them because you're not going to care about all of them, but definitely the Enterprise Intranet Collaboration one is kind of the basis for everything. Read that one, and that will help you size your next farm. As an IT nerd, man, I love that kind of stuff. That stuff's great, and especially, I've been working with the Hyper-V folks here at Rackspace and the public cloud folks, and performance is always a topic. It's always a discussion we have, and we humans, man, we're dumb. Some more than others, but we are dumb, and things feel fast, feel slow when they're really not fast or not really slow, and so having objective tools like this and objective guidance like this saves you from yourself. It saves you from going in and going, man, this SharePoint farm feels slow. Now you can say, this SharePoint farm is slow, and here's what's slow about it. The I/O is slow, the CPUs are slow, whatever. And as an admin guy, this is the kind of stuff that lights my fire. It's fun stuff. I just need to take a breath. Catch my breath. All right, so now I've got some non-SharePoint, but just fun, nerdy stuff to talk about. As I've confessed to you folks, and I feel like over the last few years, we've developed a bit of rapport, you and I. And I've talked about charities and things like that I've done, and that time that I tried to cut my hand off. You guys were some of the first ones to find out. I really feel like we've built something here. And one of the things that I've admitted to you guys, one of my secret shames, is that I'm addicted to gadgets. Man, I buy those things all the time. I cannot stop buying gadgets. Now, I justify it in the name of, it's like my career and all, but that's mostly BS. So here's another one of those things. I come to you guys with a confession to make. I have bought yet another Windows tablet. Now, that may not sound like a big deal to you guys. Oh, we bought a Windows tablet. Windows tablets are great. Within arm's reach of me right here, there are 3 Windows tablets. My Surface Pro 2, my delightful Dell Venue 8 Pro, my little buddy here, him and I, we go everywhere together. And then over there is a Surface RT that I use for some other stuff. So 3 within, mostly almost arm's reach here. And then upstairs, I've got another tablet in my bathroom. It's not tawdry like it sounds. It's way more respectable than that. I'll tell you in a minute. Then my wife also has a Dell Venue 8 Pro. Not so much because she likes it and uses it, though she does like it and she does use it, but just because I bought it and said, hey, I've got 2. You should use one. And then my wife also has a Surface RT. So in this house for 2 adults, there are 6 Windows tablets today. Tomorrow there will be more. But in my defense, I did this for you guys. I did this all for you. And what I ordered was a $99 Windows tablet. Less than $100. Less than $100. So Toshiba has a 7-inch tablet called the Toshiba Encore Mini. So by way of comparison, this Dell Venue 8 Pro is, 8 inches, and the Mini is 7. It's $99. So anyway, so this little guy for $99, it's full Windows. So it's not RT. It's not, Windows Pro. You can't join it to a domain or anything like that, but it's full Windows. It's a Atom processor, which is kind of this generation Celeron. But I'm kind of surprised. This thing's got my Venue 8 Pro's got an Atom in it. My bathroom tablet's got an Atom in it. They're not bad. It's got 1 gig of RAM, and I don't remember which Atom processor it's got. The link that I linked tells you which one it is. It's got 1 gigabyte of RAM, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we will cover that in a minute. And it's got 16 gig of storage, which isn't a lot, but we'll cover that in a minute as well. So this thing runs full Windows. So it's got the Metro interface and all your Metro apps and all that kind of stuff, but it also has the desktop if you need to fall back to that. You're not going to use that every day, but it's there if you need one. So this is going to be another companion device, and really the reason that I bought it, other than my addiction to all things that have on-off switches, is I'm curious how well Windows works with 1 gig of RAM and 16 gig of storage. So the reason that I wonder that is because these 2 tablets that I have, this Dell Venue 8 Pro and my Acer W3 upstairs, have 2 gig of RAM. And when I first saw that, I thought 2 gig of RAM, there is no way Windows will run in 2 gig of RAM. It just won't work. And I'll be damned, it works. It's pretty good. I use this Dell Venue 8 Pro all the time. It's got 2 gig of RAM. It's great. I've never, it's got a small screen, so I'm not running 15 apps at a time or programs or whatever. But for 2 gig of RAM, it runs really well. And the 16 gig of storage, the reason that I'm interested in that is because that 16 gig of storage, the way that works, the way that you don't get that thing and have like 3 bytes free, is that they're using the WimBoot with it. So the WimBoot, we talked about that a month or 2 ago, is this idea now that Windows can boot off of a compressed Windows image. And then when the machine boots up, it boots off this compressed image, which obviously is smaller than the full Windows thing. And then the changes are written outside of that image. So the 16 gig storage has like 3 gig or something that's compressed as Windows, and then everything else goes outside of that. So I'm really curious how well that works and how it is. And again, it was $99. That's like 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks. That's nothing. And Lewis in the chat room is mentioning it also comes with 1 year of Office 365 Personal, which is $99 in and of itself, but that gets you SharePoint Online and it gets you Office 2013 for a year on that box. So I got that thing, again, only for you guys, because I know you guys are curious about this kind of stuff, so I got that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for. I mentioned that I have a bathroom PC, and how that's not tawdry like it sounds. I don't use it to take selfies or anything like that. I don't think I've ever even used the camera on it. But I've got it set up, and it's just sitting behind my sink. It's just kind of propped up there. And it's got its own start screen. So all of my other Windows devices, all the start screens all sync up. This one does not sync up. And what I've done is I've made a bunch of the live tiles as large as I could. And it's just kind of like my dashboard in the morning. So it's got the big weather app on there. It's got my calendar. It's got my email. It's got pictures. You know, it's got the picture library rotates through. That just makes you feel good. Pictures of the cats and all that kind of stuff. It's got Twitter on there, so I can see, like, you know, some of the Twitter feed stuff. It's got a couple of news web parts, so I can see what's going on in the world. I also have the Xbox Music on that comes through the cloud, so I don't have to store any music on it. And then that goes to some Bluetooth speakers. And so that little thing just sits there, and it updates itself all day long. So I can go in there and, you know, like when I get up in the morning or get out of the shower or whatever, it's just kind of there, and it's kind of cool. And I use it way more than I thought I would. It's just cool to have that there. I don't know. I like it. It's just kind of like, it's like my little dashboard for all day long. Also talked about how these new, the Encore Mini has 1 gig of RAM, and how that just doesn't sound like a lot. So let's go into our Wayback Machine. January of 2007, Vista is launched. Y'all remember Vista, the much maligned Vista. Vista is launched, and here are the hardware requirements for Vista. Now, you probably guys might not remember all this, but Microsoft got sued because they had this whole Ready for Vista thing as opposed to actually a Vista. These are the actual requirements for Vista, not the Ready for Vista thing. The requirements for Vista, the good one, as good as Vista was, I know. 1 gigahertz processor, and again, remember this is 2007. 1 gigahertz processor, 1 gig of RAM, a 40 gigabyte drive with 15 gigabytes of free space, and a DVD drive. And then there was some video stuff and all that, but that was the big requirements. That was 7 years ago for Windows Vista. Windows 10, which will come out next year, has the same hardware requirements as Windows 8.1. And here are the requirements for Windows 8.1, which is the OS that the Encore Mini will have. Processor, 1 gigahertz or faster, with support for PAE, NX, and SSE2. So a bunch of those things, and I think the Vista probably had that too. RAM, 1 gigabyte for 32-bit OS, the 32-bit version, 2 gig for the 64-bit version. Hard drive, 16 gigabytes for 32-bit OS, or 20 gigabytes for 64-bit, and no DVD drive. So it actually has, 7 years later, Windows has less hardware requirements than Vista had 7 years ago. You don't need a DVD drive. Your hard drive can be smaller, same RAM, and same CPU. So that is how this works, and I just can't wait to see how it actually works. Microsoft has done a tremendous job of paring down Windows to fit on everything. Now, one thing I've noticed, I've got a bunch of Windows 8.1 devices. I got my Surface Pro 2 here. I got my my little buddy here. I've got a laptop upstairs that's 6 years old. 6 years old. I looked it up on Dell's website. 6 years old. All running Windows 8.1. And I've noticed that Windows does this great job of keeping about half the RAM free at all times. So if I'm just putzing around, on my my Surface Pro 2, got some browsers open, got Outlook open, got the Twitter thing, cycling through funny cat videos. It uses about 4 gig of RAM. Dell Venue 8 Pro, if I got Solitaire up, maybe a web browser, maybe News 360 or something, it uses a little over 1 gig of RAM. The laptop that I've got has 4 gig of RAM. And actually it's got Windows 10 on it now, but when it was Windows 8.1, it would putter along about 2 gig of RAM. So they've got some kind of logic in there somewhere that says, try to keep the system at about half of the RAM, so when spikes come, we're ready for them. But I think they have done a tremendous job of wedging a very modern operating system that's got all kinds of functionality into the same hardware requirements of 7 years ago. 7 years ago, which in this technology, which in hardware, that's even worse than dog years. That's like mule years. That's what that's like. 7 years later. So I'll have that hopefully tomorrow. I might do like an unboxing video or something. I've never done one of those, but I might do that just to kind of see what it's like. I did order some USB drives, some like little 32 gig ones, so I could make recovery permissions and all that. So that I can kind of get some of that stuff off, because that 16 gig of RAM every little bit. And I thought, so I've got this Dell Venue 8 Pro has 64 gig of RAM. The one that my wife has 32 gig of RAM, and I thought that was tight. So we'll see. We'll see how the 16 works. But I know that you guys all want to know what this mini was like. So, excuse me, I'm hooking you up at great personal expense. All right, just a couple of more things. And I should have probably talked about this at the beginning of the show. I've been telling my European friends I'm going to do a European show, and I'm going to do it. So the date is November 10th. November 10th will be the European show. And probably tomorrow I will publish a blog post looking for times, a survey kind of, because I don't know what times work best for folks in Europe. Europe's kind of a big place, so I will put it out there. But November 10th will not be 8:30 p.m. Now I might do 2. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But November 10th, put it on your calendars. Though you in Europe, it will be 10-11-2014, because you do the day and the month and the year. Here in the colonies, we do it the other way. So that is news. Also, November 3rd, I will not be here. I will be out in Seattle. I'll be at the MVP Summit, and so everybody's favorite lackey, Shane, will be filling in for me. Now, there's a chance he might be busy that night, and if that's the case, we may have to cancel, but I'll know a couple days ahead of time, so we'll find out about that, but it looks like Shane will be doing that. And speaking of podcasts and all that kind of stuff, I told you last week or the week before, the guys at the Microsoft Cloud Show, Andrew Connell and Chris Johnson, gave me a shout out. Very generous of those guys. Love them. Much love. Andrew AC published an article on IT Unity yesterday or today about all of the different SharePoint and Office 365 podcasts and video shows and all that kind of stuff. So yours truly shows up in there. I got a couple episodes in there. You can go to itunity.com and find that, or check the link here. And he's got the Microsoft Pod Show. He's got mine. He's got a couple others. If you're looking for more SharePoint and Microsoft content for your commutes or while you're running on the treadmill or whatever, that's a good one to look at. I assume he's going to update it. I need to email him about that and a couple of things. But that was kind of cool. So I appreciate Andrew taking care of that for the community. Andrew's a hell of a guy. I don't dislike him much at all. That's good stuff. Okay, home stretch, folks. Shameless self-promotion. Promotion. So we have another entry, a new entry from last week's shameless self-promotion. It looks like February 8th through the 11th. Do not come knocking on my door. It looks like I will be in Austin, Texas for SP TechCon. So that will be cool. I don't know for sure what sessions we're going to be doing. I got to talk to those guys, but I see that I'm up on the site. So I guess I'm going. So that is sptechcon.com. You can find out all about that. That's February 8th through the 11th, 2015 in Austin, Texas. So time to sign up. You can go out there and sign up and find out what our mystery topics will be. And then in April, I will be speaking at the SharePoint Evolutions Conference. That is April 20th through the 22nd in London, England. And kind of a heartbreaker about that, I noticed that they're doing another PowerShell Summit, and this one is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's the same days, April 20th through the 22nd. So it breaks my heart a little bit. I've always wanted to go to one of them there PowerShell Summits, and it looks like it won't happen this time either. All right, everybody. So we are way over. We're looking at 40-some minutes here. But you guys were great as always. The chat room was hooligan-y as always, very interactive. The lag slows some of that down. I feel bad, guys. Sorry about that. But the Google Hangouts seem to be working well. But again, I look forward to your feedback on that. Let me know. But I will be here next week, and we will go from there. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night. See you next week.